Good evening, and we're live. Thanks for joining me again. So, tonight I want to talk about Britain cracking down on the nationalist uprising. It's been a few days, and things are getting very interesting, very shady as always over there. So, I just want to check in on the old Angloids and see what's happening. There's some good, there are nationalists over there, English nationalists who are great, and but it's a very chaotic and surreal atmosphere over there, very much different to Ireland, and I find it interesting. I hope you do as well. Everybody seems to be watching it, so yeah. So I hope the sound is coming through okay and everything else. Uh, yeah, it's. I suppose I'll just go through some videos and stuff on it. There's been protests in, I think, Rotherham this evening, but there was meant to be 100 happening all over the country, all over England or Britain. And of course, they didn't materialize. It turned out to be a bit of a hoax. And you ended up with a massive counter mobilization from like leftist Muslims, foreigners, and all that kind of stuff in England. And it's the whole thing is a bit strange. And the whole thing obviously looks like a big state op to kind of crush the resistance. The resistance there is real. There is an organic grassroots fatigue against mass immigration and all of that, of course. But it's not that it's all fake. It's very real. Very the feelings and the resistance against the regime policy there is of course real. How could it not be? But the way it is being wrangled and lassoed is not is very operative on behalf of the state, or very systematic, and they know what they're doing. There is no. Someone says thumbnail typo. I don't know. I'm just checking. There's always something, so I'm just checking. What is it? Have I goofed on something here? No, I don't think I have. I've started to spell titles wrong these days and everything because I usually rush into these things. But so anyway, it's trolling by Telegram. Sorry, I'm just reading your chats there. Trolling. Yeah, it was. I think it was someone on Telegram basically posted that there were going to be 100 nationalist demonstrations or protests across England, and that was bought up by people, and they all went like I think there have been like 10,000 people showed up here, there, and everywhere in different places. London, maybe. I don't know England very well, but Brighton, Bristol, places like that. Probably several other places, but it's kind of strange. So you have this largely non-existent nationalist uprising, and that's the thing. This is why I want to talk to an actual English person, someone who really knows what they're talking about, which is hard to find. Like a really good character who is English, who focuses on these kind of things to talk to me, because that's what you always need in a situation like this. There's a person who knows the situation intimately. They're from the area and they get it, and they're spending a lot of time on it every day. So it's what has struck me as odd, and what I want explained to me by English, is all of this talk about a massive uprising in England of nationalists, like riots all over the place, chaos across the country. That is being sort of boosted by the leftist regime, or whatever you call it. What is it? Who is it said fight the leftist regime? The guy from Fair City. Virgil, yeah. So the leftist regime in England, they, they're acting like it's a big, massive rebellion, out of control chaos thing. And so are nationalists to a point. They're saying, "Oh, this is great. We're, English people are rising up and all that." The question I have is, well, I've seen the Muslims. I've seen massive groups of Muslims around the place looking for the infamous EDL to go defend themselves against, and maybe leftist protesters, NGO people, and you see the politicians bleeding on about how this is a dark day for Britain, blah 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 blah. But my question is, where is the actual substance of what they're talking about? Because I've seen a couple of videos of some nationalist rioting, some wheelie bins burned out, some English people marching around, like a bit. I've seen a bit. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. Sure, obviously it's happened. But the amount that I've seen is totally commensurate to the reaction I've seen. What I'm seeing basically is like all reaction and not much substance by comparison, relatively speaking. And that's what I find kind of odd. Is like, is how the state or some troll, I don't know how it happened, but you have the like these things were organized through obviously the mosque kind of Muslim networks and stuff, centralized like community structures they have or whatever. They'll organize their own people to come out, but then there'll be loads of general other foreigners and leftists and people like that. Like they got mobilized pretty quickly for this, and there was nothing. They're not reacting against anything. It's a ghost. There's nothing actually there. Yeah, there are angry British people about this kind of stuff, but it's totally decentralized. You're not going to get, you know 50,000 people marching in the streets of any British city nationalists, because there's, as far as I can see, in Britain, much more so than Ireland, there is sort of there's a dagger at the throat of national resistance. So, and this is just my, as an outsider, my what it looks like to me is that real nationalists and like are afraid to come out because they're afraid they'll be sent to the gulag effectively, which and it's a reasonable and legitimate fear they have. Obviously, when you look at Sam Melia and the likes of him who were put in prison for just publishing stickers. So they have a right to, they have a reason to be afraid in that sense. And then also it seems to me that there's more of a gap between the sort of like right down like working class sort of tough lads, some people say chavs, or working class, or yobs, or hooligans, or tough lads, whatever it is, right? It's sort of there seems to be more of a gap of those lads, the hard edge on the street type of thing, and a very ordinary white British person, like a very ordinary white British person, sort of middle class, who is against immigration. There seems to be more of a gap, whereas in Ireland, in my experience, there isn't that much of a gap. It's not that crazy. There's not that much of a cultural distinction or something. It seems to me like the average middle class Brit would not want to be seen anywhere near these demos. Any of the demos that do involve a little bit argy bargy, or even are billed to be peaceful, they just don't want anything to do. Anything where they're waving the flags and shit and get them out and stuff like that. The average Brit, even though they might totally like vigorously agree with the sentiment, they don't want to be there. It's just not their thing. It's sort of for like the baldy lads with the tattoos and all that. It might be a caricature that got set up by the media in England. It might be me falling into that. I'm not sure, but that's just what I feel like I see over there. I see the same sort of cartoonish set of people, let's say, coming out as always. As you see the old clips, I don't know, like race riots in the 80s or whatever, they have this caricatured sort of white resistance population, or the racists or whatever it is, who are like all thuggish, and you just don't see anyone else, and so you think they must just be a bunch of freaks or a bunch of criminals or reprobates or whatever. That's the image that you're given. And I just feel like in Ireland, you have in Coolock, you had the standoff with the guards. Yeah, that was fairly spicy, but a few months previous to that, and throughout, even on the same day as before those riots broke out, you had effectively thousands of people marching on the street, just like loads of women and children, loads of ordinary people out, of all classes, genders, ages, families, and the rest of it. So I don't know. There's that connection is very crucial, obviously, or else it's just totally scattered. You have like a heavily infiltrated, sort of weird, specific class of people who come out, but nobody else. And then in response to that, you get a mass mobilization of tens and tens of thousands of Muslims and left wingers and NGO people and the rest of it. So it's like, to me, it seems fairly imbalanced. Like I say, tens of thousands of people coming out for demonstrations that just didn't materialize. And there's people are gloating, saying, haha, all the libs and all the Muslims came out in response to a demo that wasn't happening. How stupid are they? They fell for a troll, they fell for Keck or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, but also maybe the English people should be out. Maybe there should have been 100 demos. Maybe everybody should have been out in their thousands and thousands and thousands. Like, yeah, why weren't they? You know what I mean? And they could say, oh, well, they might, but not tonight. So that's the troll. It's like, okay, tonight was a troll, but what night will they be out in those numbers? We all know that statistically, the white Brits have probably had enough, much like they have natives have in France and Ireland and everywhere else. But it's like where actually where is the mass mobilization? And it's funny as well because the other thing is, even if you listen to the likes of Laura Towler and Sam or Mark Collin and these people who I respect, and they're obviously great nationalists or whatever, I think, you know, I mean, they I don't know them well, but like, they have the right ideas and stuff like that, right? But they're saying, and they're meant to be the most like, they're not Stivnats, they're not this, that, and the other. And yet even they're saying, oh, I wouldn't go to these things. Like, it's just, you're just going to get wrapped up and thrown in prison. You're just going to get gay up. And again, they're probably right, but it's a strange situation in England where, like, you don't have that in Ireland. That risk obviously exists in Ireland, maybe to a far lesser extent. We also have the martyrdom culture where, like, the guards kind of know that that's a dangerous thing to do, start locking everyone up. And we sort of lean into it a little bit. But so I don't know what the cultural differences are, let's say, between Ireland and England there, but you don't really hear Irish nationalists, like activists and stuff, saying, don't go out, you're just going to get wrapped up. Now, it might be because we just don't, like, as a people, we don't care. We're not afraid we just take the consequences for what they are. So if we get persecuted, we get persecuted. And that's something we don't take into account beforehand. You just go to a demo, and if you maintain your peaceful demeanor and the rest of it, then that's fine. Or it's that the guards don't crack down as hard on us as the police do over there, which is also probably true. But either way, the result is that you don't have that being said in Ireland across from street person to community organizer type nationalist person to talking head to politician. You don't have this thing of like, oh, well, none of us can go on the streets because, like, for one, there's not going to be like 5,000 Muslims show up with machetes. For two, the police aren't going to arrest you for like looking the wrong way or whatever, having a tweet, and various other factors like that. So it just it is kind of strange when I'm watching this kind of uprising in Britain. I'm kind of going, well, what uprising? Like, how many people are we talking here? What? And again, I don't criticize the Towlers and the Mark Collins because I know where they're coming from. Like, look at Sam Mealy; he's in jail for publishing stickers. I get it. If either of them probably showed up to a demo and just stood there, they'd probably get arrested and thrown in jail for 15 years for that or whatever. And I understand that. And the same could happen to any innocent random person who goes along. But I don't know. It's just it's a strange situation. The way they're talking about it, like it's such a big deal. They're creating 500 extra prison spaces. I mean, the police and the state have just come out hardcore to say, like, we are going to fuck anybody who does anything, right? And they say that in Ireland too, but they can only go so far with it. It's not as bad. It's just basically not half as bad here as it is there. That's kind of like my TLDR there. But I just want to watch a few videos, because it's kind of late. Let's just watch a few videos and chill out. Here's one from David Starkey. I just thought this was really good, actually.
The Britain I grew up.
Think about the Britain he grew up. He's an old enough guy, right?
The Britain I grew up in was the most peaceful, the most gentle, homogenous society that has ever existed. Why we did not need identity cards, why there are extraordinarily low levels of crime, such high levels of public trust. That has been destroyed. It has been deliberately destroyed by Tony Blair and New Labour with this absurd notion that they were going to force us to become multi-ethnic for our good. They were going to rub the noses of the whites in the dirt. And sorry, we've got to understand that. It is an act of such inconceivable national self-harm.
You mentioned rubbing the noses of the whites. I think you're referring to a comment about
So yeah, that just that reminded me of just like a little eulogy for England or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong now. If I hopefully I can talk to an English person and they can set me straight. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should be more optimistic and have more fire in the belly and optimism, the way I do for Ireland, and I get all excited and into it and motivated about Ireland. And when I just look at England, I don't. I'm just totally honest. Like I love it because they're the big neighbor, because they have such an impact on the fate of Ireland as well via the north, and just overall they're a big, powerful country. I would love if they went, if I had more hope for them, that would be good for Ireland, to be honest. But anyway, so that's David Starkey on what they've done. But it just reminded me of Lee Kuan Yew, who said this about England.
The first time I came out of the tube station at Trafalgar Square, I was very impressed. There was a bundle of newspapers for sale and a box. Nobody there. And you can take the newspaper and put your coins in or change notes and take coins. I said, this is really a civilized society.
Yeah, and I'm sure it was. You couldn't like the London I was in last time. I was there a handful of years ago. I don't know, 2 years ago, maybe somewhere there. And I actually made a video about it at the time. It was like City of London, like central kind of London. But I've never been in a more nightmarish place. And I've been to some pretty bad spots. And I've been to Harlem, which was bad in New York. And I've been to, some fairly dodgy, slums in Africa, let's say. And I've never felt as uncomfortable and surveilled and not advertised to, but I mentioned this in a video before, how many signs there were for the way sometimes you can see a sign for washing your hands, a sign for how to open a door, how to close a door, what to think, what to believe, what chewing gum to have, please mind your step, but sometimes the signs get out of control where everything is just oversaturating you and in your face. That's how I felt more than I've ever felt in London. It was just everywhere. And then the deep multi-ethnic sort of state over there. And just again, this kind of police state on top of you more so than anything was the issue. I felt that very, very strongly. And the lack of trust, the lack of a real society undergirding any of that, unlike what Lee Kuan Yew's talking about there, it was like it's all state and no society, if you get what I mean. Ordinarily, a state and a society are sort of somewhat in parallel to each other, or sort of interconnected, right? Inextricably linked, whatever. That's usually what you get with a state and a society. That's what we expect. Whereas I've never, almost more than New York, I would say, even more than Manhattan. I felt this extreme disconnect between society and state. It felt pretty grim. But so that's there. But funnily enough, speaking of trust, there was I saw this was in Rotherham. Look at this. Look at this in. Force a police facial recognition van to flee the area. Good on them, or at the very least, it's a CCTV camera. To compare this to England, Lee Kuan Yew saw, where you could take a newspaper for free, and here we have polls going around with vans going around with these cameras. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, so you have this white working class there protesting. They do exist. Mike, one of the questions I have is how much a white working class or a fire in the belly type population is there versus these endless streams of foreigners, Muslims, and the rest of it, who are highly networked and organized and moralized. In terms of networked, organized, and moralized whites, which would be basically the lads, the estate lads and stuff like that primarily. How many what kind of numbers are we talking? I don't really know, like, because I've not been around the place there. But you know, that's the thing. The thing about England is everything is a CCTV camera, everything is a sign, everything is a license, everything is a guideline, a regulation, SOP. It's like a smarmy police officer coming into your house with a clipboard about your tweet. But they're not even. It would be better if they kicked your door in, or not even kicked your door in, but like like a Chinese totalitarian state that just kicks your door in and says, "Listen, you've offended the state. Come with me," and puts you in the dungeon or whatever. And they're just open about it. But it's the idea of like a 28-year-old woman, like a large, like soft gentleman or whatever, coming in with a clipboard and being like, "Oh, we just want to talk about your tweets, and we just want to ask you about them and stuff like that." That sort of smarmy, bureaucratic totalitarianism, but very real as well. Like we saw with Sam Melia, where they said he couldn't even talk about his kids in prison, or he couldn't have a picture of them brought to him to see how they are, or he couldn't. He was deprived of access to his children in any fashion for a while there in prison, and for no reason. It's brutal. It's Hun or Mongol tier like cruelty, but it's just got this facade of this kind of lanyard around its neck, and I think that is fucking disgusting and creeps me out big time. And of course, you have it with the guards too. You have it in Ireland. I'm not saying it's like not in Ireland. It's in Ireland too, obviously, but it's just dialed up to like maximum in England. I feel like more than France, more than Germany, or Ireland or anywhere else. I don't know. There's something about England where I feel like it's like the most totalitarian, bureaucratic, liberal police state on earth. That's just how, and well developed as well. It knows what it's doing. They're not on the back foot with a thing like this, where there's a reaction to Southport. They have this well-oiled machine, and they know well what they're doing, and they have their population, like the boot on the neck of the native population before anything happens. But so here's one of these police talking about West Midlands police discussed disorder that kicked off after misinformation spread online. Sky News covering the unrest in Birmingham were followed by a man holding a knife and wearing a balaclava after broadcasting live. I think they're talking about Muslims, but I just want to give you a visceral idea of the type of people. Like all these police I see and representatives, they all look so dead in the eyes. Like it's like you're not even dealing with human beings, to be honest.
Low key, should we say, police presence? Because I mean, clearly your officers were there, but they were not visible, and yet there were.
Like I'm speculating, right, about this guy, just in case I'm ever over in England and they like haul me up or whatever. I don't know the man, but what I'm saying is a lot of these types of people, that they would cut your neck open, slice you to bits, right? They would cut you open, they would bleed you down, bleed you dry. For a new kitchen, for a little promotion, for something like that, a new electric, Kia Sorento or whatever. Like that's the kind of bug you're dealing with with these people, and it's vicious, and they're just dead behind the eyes. Sad.
An awful lot of people out, and an awful lot of people who were armed with various weapons.
So we have really strong business and community relations. And because we were aware through intelligence that there was a potential protest through that misinformation yesterday, we had the opportunity to meet with community leaders, with business leaders prior to that event to kind of understand the style of policing that we needed to deliver during the course of that operation. So we knew that there was going to be a large amount of people out on that counter protest. We knew who the vast majority of those people were. We'd had conversations in terms of what that was likely to look like. And so our policing response was commensurate to that intelligence and the information that we'd held with our partners and communities prior to that event taking place.
Just notice, by the way, before I go on, notice how you keep hearing, one of the big themes you hear is this word communities. So they keep talking about our communities, and we're talking to communities and all that. Now, bear in mind that communities means foreigners, right? That's a euphemism. It means foreigners just straight up, basically. They don't say, oh, we want to talk to the white community, we want to talk to the white English or the native English ethnic community, or we want to talk to like the people who think we shouldn't bring in 10 billion Indians next year because, you know, nobody can afford a house and we're living in a fucking dystopian nightmare. Maybe we should bring in 5 billion instead of 10 billion Indians, you know. Like, anybody who believes that is a community, I think it's fair enough, right? Statistically well represented among the population. They have their views. Let them be a community too in this slightly sectarian issue where there's a need for policing. There's one side here, one side here. They have opposing beliefs. One side are sort of Muslim foreigners, a smattering of native leftist degenerates. And then you have a bunch of white or native people or whatever who have a view about immigration. And those are two legitimate, let's just say, factions of people. So if he was saying, oh, well, there are these two communities, you have like this English kind of community, native English or white or whatever you want to call it, that's a community and that's a point of view. And then there's this Muslim community who are pro, they're against native people being represented or having distinct rights or having ancestral rights within the country, or native rights even, right? Even like Native Americans, even reservations, right? Or the ability to stop unlimited fellow Pakistanis or whatever coming into the country. Obviously, the mosque people, they mostly will disagree with that. They don't like the white native people there asserting their own interest and collectivizing and stuff. So I don't know. It's just that's what it really is. But when they talk about communities, they're talking about foreigners, basically.
Even given there were so many of them clearly armed, I mean, would you do the same if it was an EDL type situation?
So we policed in response to the intelligence that we received at that moment in time. What I would say is that the vast majority of people that attended that protest yesterday did so law-abidingly, and they did it with the right intentions. There were just
I think he's talking about the Muslims there
that attended there and were intent on causing either criminality, disorder, or fear within our communities. What we saw was a response from our communities where they were trying to kind of make sure that that was policed within themselves as well, and trying to deter people.
Our communities. And look at this guy. This is hilarious. Another one of these bug humans, right? Like, this is who is not ruling. These people aren't ruling. These are like apparatchiks, but like of your own fellow English people or natives in Ireland. It could be Irish people, but your own fellow natives, the ones who are sort of put in charge as the invigilators of this whole shit show, are the most craven, spineless, amoral climbers possible among you. And usually they're like, not, you know, they're silly, we'll say, right? Like this guy is clearly dumb as a bag of potatoes, right? And you know, I don't know, it's like, you know, that guy who should be like cleaning chewing gum off the side of a footpath at best, right? But who gets into like a sort of a low level office role somehow, but they have a knack for sucking up. They can't even pronounce words properly. They can't even speak. They can, like, you know, they can barely hold a sentence together, but they know how to lick arse and they know how to play the game, and they manage to get one or two notches up. And they're just, it's like they're really thick, but they have a knack. They're sharp enough for sucking up, and they're sharp enough for knowing who to stab in the back and that kind of stuff. So they're able to get climb one or two rungs slightly higher, still low, but they're able to climb a couple of rungs up, and they're delighted. And that's the meaning of their lives now, is that they have this badge and this decent enough income and a little bit of status when they should actually be licking chewing gum off a desk, right? So that becomes their whole worldview. Then is actually being a rat becomes the meaning of their lives. So have a listen to this guy.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. My name is Phil Hutchinson, and I am the superintendent for Greater Manchester Police, based in Oldham. Obviously, echo everything that the leader Rouge has said. firstly, thank you very much for inviting us and arranging the meeting. It's the inaugural meeting. We're having these now bi-monthly, so in respect to what Aruj has mentioned about some increased tension, obviously there are a number of issues going on nationally and within Greater Manchester. We're engaging with all communities, and Greater Manchester Police and UK.
Are you engaging with the racists? Like the people you describe as racist? Nobody describes themselves that way or with these silly words, but the people who say, I want immigration to stop, I don't want foreigners getting preferential treatment, I don't want to become a minority in my country without us having a democratic say. Those are my views. You describe those people as racist. Fine. You want to put a pejorative term on them, but will you acknowledge that they're a community, a participant in this political issue going on, this community sectarian issue? You're talking to the Muslims. Okay, fine. They're a community. Speak to whoever. They're a community. I mean, I'm not like, I might have whatever view of Muslims in the UK or how they act there or the amount of them that are coming in. I can have views, good or bad. I will acknowledge they are a community, sure. So even if you don't like Muslims, you don't like Islam, you'll still acknowledge that they're a community. Obviously, they're a community. That's just a definitional fact. So I would just say to your man, Liz, like, well, what about white native Brits who don't want to become a minority and they hate the way they're being treated and, you know, they're against all this stuff? Like, he'd be like, no, they're not a community. They're just bad people. And it's like, oh, right, okay. So again, the definition of a thing depends on your moral appraisal of it, whether it is or isn't a thing, which is kind of at the heart of this, how they keep bleating on about community this, community that. And it goes back to that two-tier Keir Starmer. That really is a true meme, you know. It is a two-tier thing. And like the problem was baked into the cake, and this was in Ireland, Netherlands, England, everywhere. America, of course, especially, was the hypocrisy has always been baked in, where the police basically took a knee for violent black people, violent demonstrators marching for BLM, who were smashing things, maybe attacking the odd person here and there, getting into stopping cars, rattling cars, dragging people out of cars. And this stuff was happening to varying extents across America and the UK, somewhat in Ireland as well, actually. In Balbriggan there was violence, Blanchardstown. But again, they, you know, after something like that happened, how do they come back from that? Because they say, you know, the idea was like, okay, so you're violent and you're angry, but your cause is just, so you get to commit crime and we'll basically look the other way. And then not only that, but we'll get on our knees and we'll twerk and we'll do all this stuff. So it's like, again, that's where the two-tier thing, it always comes back to. It's like, okay, so now white people are angry in England that a bunch of girls were killed by a random foreigner and they think there's too many foreigners and blah, blah, blah. The police would say, oh, well, we don't agree with their outlook. It's like, yeah, but you agreed with the BLM protesters in England talking about a controversial and debatable police handling issue 6,000 miles away in, was it Wisconsin or Michigan? You know, I don't know. I'm stating the obvious here with the stuff, but like, you know, it's very obvious to anybody who's not like a total ice cream cone that, you know, when they talk about communities and when they talk about cracking down on the demos and the violence and all this, that it is just white British people cannot have an identity or political agency or protest or anything else because of who they are. That's it. Because you could have the exact same state of racial grievance or more. You could have more racial grievance in the sense that you're more aggrieved and you're more racial about it. And you could also be more violent in your demonstrations and more vandalistic, whatever the word would be for that, doing more vandalism and more violent and criminal. And that's fine if you're black and so it's all those same things, but it's from you being black, then it's okay, it's permissible. And in fact, we might get on our knees for you and dance around. But if you're white, it doesn't count. and it's that's just an untenable hypocrisy or problem there. And also, you can be a community. The black community is being very racist and very violent in their demonstration and highly ethnocentric and all this. But this is fine because they're a community, so we liaise with them and all this. But if the whites do it, you just crush and boot on the neck. And that's the central issue there.
Policing will continue to deal with perpetrators and people who are committing crime.
Yep.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Hello, assalamu alaikum. So there was another one here that reminded me, I think, of this. Oh yeah, so there's another one talking about communities. Just another mention of this famous community word.
Measure.
Our communities.
I think so. I think we should stop it. It's only a temporary measure in order to limit the spread of inflammatory information, misinformation as well, across the United Kingdom at this point. And I think we should focus on keeping people safe and communities safe as well. So my point is just to I think so. I think
keeping communities safe.
Stop it.
She's talking about Muslims and whatever, foreigners. Here was another example. This was your man there, Connor. I said his name wrong last time. It's Connor Tomlinson. He does the rounds on GB News, and I think he does the Lotus Eaters Sargon of Akkad thing as well. This is a bizarre interaction, if you want to have a look at this.
English side of the riots than the Muslim side of the riots.
We can't say English because a lot of people are Muslim. They're all
what you hear. But I think the important point is being made before the break that the police have, in other instances and in this, had a stronger presence at the English side of the riots than the Muslim side of the riots.
We can't say English because a lot of people are Muslim. They're also English.
No, as in like the English flag waving, ethnically English side of the riots, because there's not a large Muslim presence at the main demonstration since the Southport riots, is there? I think that's a fair distinction to make. And the point being, there have been prior events, and this has been raised by other guests on your show, particularly yesterday, like the Black Lives Matter riots, where in America, there was a parallel demonstration in England where there was criminal damage committed, and the Met gave their officers the go-ahead to take the knee. There was the Palestine protests every weekend and Wednesday since October the 7th, not since Israel's
someone takes more issue with him using basically the term ethnic English is the issue, right?
Retaliation, mind you, who shot fireworks at police horses, who projected from the river to the stating MPs, and they got a lot lighter of ethnic gangs fighting in British streets.
It's not legitimate to distinguish between Muslims and English. Like, it's not legitimate to say ethnic English versus Muslims. Like, we don't talk like that in this country anymore.
What do you mean you don't talk like that in this country?
We, the rest of the country, the mainstream, the normal Britain, proper Britain, we don't talk like that. We don't think like that. And it's you that's got...
Like what?
Like that.
No, like what are you insinuating?
I'm not insinuating. I'm saying it really clearly straight to your face.
You're not?
Yes, I am.
Say it.
Ethnic English versus Muslim. We don't talk like that in this country anymore unless we are racists.
It's possible to be not ethnically English and born in Britain. Like, that's not a controversial statement whatsoever.
What's ethnically English mean?
As in your grandparents and your parents, and they're from Anglo-Saxons. But I'm not associating any morality with that. I'm just saying there are two groups here. One group is flying the English flag. One flag is the Palestine flag.
So yeah, there's a little bit of an issue there with like some of the conflation. Like, you know, obviously you could be in theory you could be ethnically English and Muslim because it's a religion, and you could be a foreigner and atheist or Christian, of course. But so it's a kind of a little slightly messy in that sense. But the premise really is the ethnic English aspect, is that's what the guy on the right there is picking up on and like having an allergic reaction to. And you see this in Ireland too, and it's very weird. It's like again, and it's actually one of the weak spots of the liberal worldview, globalist sort of worldview, is you just pick up on that and say, well, because like one of the things they'll do is define it into non-existence, or like undefine it or deconstruct it. But if you just simple thing of like the fact that he has an allergic reaction to the term ethnic English, it's like, so you're saying there can be a Muslim community, there can be a Sami community, like the natives of Finland or Iceland or whatever. There could be a Sikh community, a not just an Indian community, but like a South Indian community, like south of India itself, or a Baluchi community. I could go on and on. Like all these communities that are most often ethnically based, but could be ethnically, nationally, racially, religiously, any version of these terms whatsoever, based on all sorts of things, very often including blood, group, tribe, ethnicity, the rest of it, right? Within England. And that these are these communities you're talking about. But if you just simply say, well, I'm not talking about jackboots and, skinheads and all that, but I'm just talking about if that's what you were bringing to the table to me, a conversation about communities expressing their interests and their grievances and having solidarity, which is having meetups and all the rest of it, then can I have a ethnic English community? Can I be part of this rainbow patchwork nation? That's can I, like, if you even ask for that, not we want English back, England back, we want this, that, and the other. Just can I be a legitimate part of your new post sort of national rainbow thing or whatever it is? Can I be a community and assert our group interests and the rest of it? Just like if, for example, in Ireland, Irish travellers can assert their interests as a specific group. They're actually deemed a different ethnicity. It's like, well, if travellers can be a group, then can non-travellers be a group? No. It doesn't work like that. But if they could be Irish traveller, if you're like Irish non-traveller, we're going to have an Irish non-traveller meetup, right? Well, like, what's wrong with that? Etc. But it's just funny, the reaction. It's like that is the sensitive spot. It's just to get them to just squirm on that. Like, you're saying we don't exist. There's no such thing. It's like, would you sit down with a bunch of Nepalese, right, or whatever, black? Let's make it simple, because that could be someone from Jamaica or from various places. It's just a pure skin color. It couldn't be more blindly racial, right? They wouldn't question that. They wouldn't say you can't be that. So that's one of the problems at the heart of it. Anyway, I thought that was just interesting, the communities thing. So here's more bureaucratic totalitarianism. So UK authorities will round up and charge citizens who retweet any material deemed as inciting hatred. Now, I wasn't watching it myself, but I saw someone in a chat was saying that Sky News all day long were running stories about arresting white British protesters, like a scare reel. Now, I often find that Sky News, more than any other channel, more than CNN or RT or any of this, if you want to get sort of the Cuban cigars of regime media, the rare old aged cognac of regime aesthetic and messaging, you put Sky News on, right? I always do it if I'm in a hotel room or whatever. Sometimes I might even do it at home, roll up the sleeves, sort of sit back and get into it. But apparently Sky News were doing that all day. But here's more of what they're running. So this is: UK authorities will round up and charge citizens who retweet any material deemed as inciting hatred. And again, not Muslims though, unless it's against Israel. It's complicated, but here we go.
Serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them. Now,
again, this guy, I don't know if he is or isn't a member of the LGBT community. I'm not sure, and I also don't know if he'd eat your liver, with a Chianti or whatever. I don't know if these things are true or untrue. I cannot possibly speculate, but
The offence of
I don't know.
incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to stir up racial hatred. So if
Bizarre. Likely to stir up racial hatred. So again, if it's anything against white people, no problem. It just doesn't count. It's mad.
if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth. So it's a really, really serious.
That's
People
really serious. Let's go back on that.
People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them. The offence of
Fucking
incitement.
hell, what a nutcase, right? Anyway, these are the people who administrate over you. It's a little bit more similar kind of stuff. UK media warns citizens, again on Sky News. So they're just running this all day long, right? UK media warns citizens that reposting or sharing anti-immigration material could be considered a criminal offence, even if it was to warn other people. Hilarious.
A recording that could, in intending.
I'm joined by Matthew Thompson now to talk through this. So Matthew, the last point there is crucial, isn't it? Some people might be sharing simply to warn their friends, but it could be considered an offence because they're amplifying this.
Absolutely, and that's the key message, is that however you think you're acting innocently on social media, whatever platform it is, you're just sharing something for whatever reason, that could potentially be a criminal offence. And look, it's not an idle threat either, because the Crown Prosecution Service were keen to point out that they've made a number of charges in relation to stirring up of racial hatred online, one of which this morning was for distributing a recording that could, in intending to stir up racial hatred. And so they are actually already bringing charges in relation to this sort of thing. So it's a very, very clear message based in the harsh reality, if you like, that if you do this kind of thing, you are potentially committing a criminal offence. There he said it. They've got teams of people scouring the internet looking for this sort of thing. And if you are in the business of sharing or retweeting, whatever platform it might be, potentially criminal material, well, then you could find yourself prosecuted.
Bizarre, right? And again, potentially you might think, oh, is that some video of someone getting their head kicked in with racial slurs? No, you're talking about someone like someone, Sam Melia's most offensive stickers that he got thrown in jail for, remains in jail for, where messages such as "Love your nation." But there was a Darren Beattie tweet as well. I thought it was good because it kind of just reminds me of this. He said, and this is so true when you watch videos like this: Britain treats its own native white population far worse than China treats Muslim Uyghur population. Or Iran tweets. It's my head is addled from Twitter. More than, God knows, Iran. Or, I'm trying to think of an example. Russians and Chechens, or Russians and whatever it is, other types of minorities and stuff like that. But the broader point would be that when you watch a video like this previous one, where they're like, I'm almost at a loss on how to react to it, because they're saying basically if you tweet anything, even vaguely in support, if you retweet or share, even if you're against it, but you're sharing it to warn someone, like this is how much they're trying to put the scares out on this stuff, that you could be arrested. We have teams of people scouring the internet. Like this is as much like a warning as anything else. Like they're just trying to scare people. Like in reality, they don't have enough resources to capture that many people. So it's like on one hand they're arresting and persecuting people, on the other hand they're just sort of throwing out the threats like a mafia or something, right? Oh, you wouldn't want to get your windows to smash in, maybe you should just pay up or whatever. And I don't see, it used to be a bit of a sort of meme that people would say, oh, well, a lot of Western nations are now more authoritarian than China and Russia and all that. Like it used to be sort of a meme, and you think, well, maybe that's true actually, but it's a nuanced intellectual take or whatever, and it's, you know, maybe takes a little bit of an abstract thinking outside the box to arrive at that. And you might eventually sort of say to yourself, do you know what, there's some truth in that actually. Yeah, liberal totalitarian sort of ideology and this and that, and you know, they can arrest you on the extreme end for hate speech, like, but it's very rare, you know, as well in reality. And there's a lot we can say and do realistically, you know. It's only on the very fringes people get picked up. So I don't know. But now it's a completely obvious point. It's not nuanced. It's not a hot take. It's just raw, obvious, right? That the UK is clearly a far more totalitarian, dystopian state than Russia or China are by a long, long shot. It really, clearly, they don't talk like this on, as far as I know, on Russian and Chinese television. I mean, maybe someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, Frody Midyard or someone like that, a Russia critic, or maybe I need to talk to someone like him or learn more about it. But I don't think they're this bad. On full replacement mode with full, like, not just saying if you do like a really extreme form of so-called hate speech, you'll get arrested, but it's like if you share anything that could be deemed to be hateful or could offend someone, whatever these broad definitions, if you even share that, even though you're against it, we could come and get you. Like, they don't talk like that. That would be a cartoonish exaggeration of what they do in China, surely. It's nuts, absolutely mad. So okay, I don't want to spend too long. I'm gonna wrap it up basically now. I just kind of wanted to just do a bit of general shooting the breeze on this stuff, but I thought this was speaking to like the chaotic nature of it in Britain too, and of course it's chaotic in Ireland too, and there are operatives at play in Ireland as well. There's there's scattered quality to it. It's decentralized, but I just feel like there's far more subversion in England, and it's harder for them to get it together. So here's an example of it. So if you look at this is
cowards! Aldershot, let's show them you're not welcome here. Communist scum! Aldershot, let's.
So I could be wrong. This guy might not be a carnival barker, you know, kind of con artist or whatever. Maybe he isn't. I genuinely don't really know who he is, but just look at the atmosphere. On one side you have this organized sort of Antifa thing. On the other side you have this guy in a kind of suit, you know, like mic'd up, with a bunch of teenagers. Effectively, the contrast is a little bit too stark. It's a little bit strange.
Aldershot, let's show them you're not welcome here. Communist scum off our streets. Communist scum off our streets. Communist scum off our streets. Communist scum.
Now the teenagers are kind of mouthing it, but they're just kind of messing, and I'm just like going, what have communists got to do with it, right? I'm not trying to be a Bolshevik here or whatever, but it's like, this has got nothing to do with communism or capitalism or syndicalism, or it's just the foreigners, and you know, it's an ethnic national thing, right? It's like got nothing to do with an economic ideology or any of that. And it's very strange to be sort of carnival barking a bunch of teenagers into shouting communist scum off our streets. Like a really ragtag group versus look at these guys with their signs, the whole thing organized as fuck, right? Obviously they're state backed, I know. But on the other hand, you have this
what are you masking up for, mate? What are you masking up for? Yeah? What are you masking up for?
I don't know, maybe your man's sound, but I did see like it was that this guy is like from the Turning Point UK, which is like a branch off of Turning Point USA, which is like sort of a niche interest group against socialism and stuff like that. Capitalist right-wing sort of conservative ink stuff. And it's like, so you have this guy, these kind of people out there. You have Tommy Robinson out there, sort of like an Israel type of figure. and then you have Laura Towler and Mark Collett and people like that who are sort of more orthodox, straightforward, sincere nationalists who are away at home, afraid to come out, understandably, because they will just get wrapped up in this big fiasco. This, like, you know, the whole thing is such a rigged up disaster. But the people who would be there giving coherent speeches, and not acting on behalf of some sort of weird lobby or something, or a state operative, they can't come out. So into the vacuum comes all this kind of stuff. So it's like, that's where it leads. Is Tommy Robinson on holiday? Someone said, yeah. You know, the whole atmosphere is so poisonous, poison. And then of course you have these like state-backed, like millions or whatever, maybe millions of Muslims and like highly organized foreigners who are not just like not persecuted by the state, but are totally state-backed. Their community, they're liaised with, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, how do they bridge that issue? It's one of the things I'm very grateful in Ireland. For some reason, they haven't been able to get on top of that. They haven't been able to sort of completely smash the community. Like, we're very much under the thumb, of course, as well. But there's still the ability for communities in Dublin and rural communities. Look at the way Newtown and Mount Kennedy came out. Even though they got defeated, they could come out and you could have, you know, the equivalent of Towler or someone like that in Ireland totally there, present, doing interviews, and then you could have someone who's more centre right there too, and they could be talking to each other and then talking to all the people there, all these normal people, thousands of them, and all that going on. And I suppose we're just lucky to have that sort of, I don't know, culture, but also a less intensive totalitarian police state thus far, that we are able to do that. And it seems like over there, they're just not. Even when there's all this anger in there, clearly organic, it's sort of it's so under the boot of subversion, raw power, the prosecutorial state, and then of course the golem, the millions of foreigners who are highly organized and sort of militant foreigners, like a lot of them, around the country, especially in the cities and stuff. So it's like, it's a tough one. I see it as like important to figure out, and this is why I'm interested in it from an Irish point of view, is that I want to try to sort of deconstruct and understand, and I wish them the best over there, of course, but as far as I currently understand it, I want to deconstruct and understand what the differences are, why it is in Ireland we're able to sort of, this energy we're able to ride this energy. We have an activist, decentralized activist class as well, talking heads and activists and political figures and stuff out there who are good. They're ideologically consistent. They have influence. There's not that much of a divide between centre right and what's called far right. They're able to plug in with the people more readily. There's not that much of a fear of anything that isn't like thuggery, you know, like the middle class and the ordinary people aren't afraid to come out as well, sort of thing. There's all these factors. And then the way the media are easily able to turn it into EDL, skinhead, swastika tattoos, you know, you name it, this kind of, they're able to turn it into this like caricature, like a Marvel sort of version of a nationalist. They're able to always have it seem that way, or just like mindless hooligan thuggery, you know, sort of this kind of ugly look or whatever. And there's no connection between that and what everybody else, people who just don't want millions of foreigners coming in and believe in the ethnic English posterity and all that. I don't know. I really want to understand that. I want to understand how it can kick off in England and they're able to sort of wrap it up so tightly within a few days, I feel like, anyway. And I could be wrong. Maybe the overreaction from the British state will just provoke further uprising, and, you know, maybe you will have, you know, political people come in and fill the vacuum politically, and they don't get crushed by the state, and you'll have 50,000 people marching in London for Britain and the rest of it. Maybe they will push through the the sort of the curtain of totalitarianism, whatever you want to call it. Like maybe they'll be able to smash it or get through it or get around it, but I struggle to see how. I don't know. I say all this, and I don't take any glean in it, and you know, I do think that like if nationalism, you know, I think nationalism in Ireland depends on a certain amount of the mood changing or the zeitgeist and the power structures sort of changing or toppling or whatever it is in Britain and in Europe, Brussels, and in Washington. Like I'm not one of these people who thinks we can be a plucky country acting in isolation. We could be very influential. We could really lead the way in our own right, as a sort of a microcosm and a model to follow and all that. But we couldn't go all the way ourselves because, of course, our skies are the sovereign actor over our skies is the RAF. So, you know, I know that if Britain goes like hardcore totalitarian multi-cult, like irreversibly so, and the British just die off, and that's not even to mention Northern Ireland, so-called, right? Someone is annoyed at me because I say North of Ireland. He's a loyalist. A few loyalists in my chat who like to get angry. It's funny. Well, to me, it's the North of Ireland. But you know, whether it's because of that or just because even if we were a full country, they're just across the sea. If they go down hardcore, like finished mode, and they're not going to let, there's nowhere, even if we completely consolidated the political situation in Ireland and got it down pat, and we restored nationalism and started to unwind the demographics, and, you know, real nationalists kind of took power in Ireland, hypothetically. This horrible British state would not allow it. Of course, they wouldn't allow it. They would have the assassinations and the financial freezes and the RAF bombing raids and all the rest of it going 90, right? The poisonings and you name it. Like, it just would not happen. So I don't look at and say, we've got it all going on so well in Ireland. Look at England, they don't have the balls that we do or something. It's not like that at all. It's just that they have they're like stage 4 cancer and we're stage, 0.5 or stage 1 or 2. I don't know cancer very well, fortunately enough, but like, we're like stage 2 or whatever it is, where there's still a sort of more of a chance that a fairly fighting chance that it can be gotten rid of. Like, it's not total, like, it's not totally over. It's like, actually, you could kind of go either way there yourself. Whereas England is like, it's at the point where it'd be a mirror. It's not unheard of that maybe they could survive. Maybe they could figure something out, but it's looking bad. They're looking pretty skinny, and pretty faint, and they can't, that kind of thing. So, so I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Just a couple of super chats, lads. I'll read them. So. Dell9993 gives 10 thank you and says, Irish leaders dismiss you. Would they heed my warning? So, like, non-Euro people crushed by peace. Third-class citizens, language almost gone, indigenous religion outlawed. Will Irish listen to us, if not you? Well, listen to who? I mean, like a non-European. No, I don't think they're going to listen to anybody. I don't think they're going to listen to foreigners or us. A lot of foreigners are against this too, but and it's not even about what Irish leaders do, or like they're like Simon Harris and Helen McEntee today are talking about trying to ban Twitter and like rein Twitter and regulate Twitter and all of this. Like, they have no agency whatsoever. They're just acting upon what they're told. But so Armchair Limerick Nationalist 5, thanks as always. So says the government and media are all brainwashed mad bastards. What's the end game for all of this madness, I wonder? I don't know, pal. I don't know. I think it's It's funny, isn't it? Like how someone asked me this the other night, where do you see us in 5 years? And it's like, I don't have the answer to that, but how can it go anywhere good at all? And it is funny. I don't want to be depressing, but am I right in saying that like everyone in society, unless people are directly like they're major huge landlords or they're directly profiting from it on the back end in some way, but the average person, it's become almost normal to understand that everything's just going to get way worse, as compared to the boomers and stuff who kind of always had a sense of things getting better. Isn't that kind of mad? That I think a lot of even ordinary people who aren't that political, like people under the age of 50 anyway, if you said to them, where do you see us in 10 years? You could almost imagine a normalish person, like a non-online, fairly normal person saying probably civil war or something, you know? Like a lot of people would just say that reflexively, in a way, like casually. And it's like, I think I'm right. Maybe I'm out of touch, but I think that's the kind of feeling that people have in some sense. It's like, yeah, I don't know, something like it just can't go on like this. It can't just carry on like this. Something has to happen. So I don't know. I'd say it could be this year. I'd say it could be before even the year is out. Things could get fairly funky around the place, but we'll see. And then so just James Bond says all birds are equal, said the eagle to the cuckoo. Good one. And thank you, of course, as well. And Sheepdog 2 says the time is now. Sure is. And thank you as well. Yeah, so I don't know. There's someone I was talking to, an English person there. I was trying to get him on tonight or last night or tonight. He's kind of busy with a lot of stuff going on, but might have someone on Sunday to talk about it. Because I want to get the story from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I might even get another person before then. So I am kind of all about that for now. It's interesting. So anyway, I'm going to George Floyd. This is not a super chat, but it's just an ordinary chat. Someone called George Floyd says I can't breathe. Oh, someone says, would you ever? I'm just going back to normal chat now. Sorry. Someone says, would you ever chat to Uber Boyo? Of course I would. He's a cool cat. I love his approach to things, the positive, futuristic sort of mindset, and dreaming big and being sort of stylish and not being a stodgy, like, not being a stodgy tool, basically, which is like, I mean, I suppose it's a low bar to just say that, but he seems just class to me, and I'm a big fan of what he's doing, him and a few others. It's a cool little generation of people out there. I'm so proud of, regardless of like, even if the Irish state puts their boot on the neck as hard as England does to them, and we end up in the same position, fine. You know, I won't even eat my words because I'm not even being smug. It's not coming out of smugness. To say this, because England have a lot of, I mean, excellent activists, you know, Steve Laws and Laura Towler and this guy Connor Tomlinson, loads of other people, right? They've got cool people out there, but with all due respect to them, I'm so proud of the Irish scene and what sort of what we've got going on, the different types of activists, the fabric between all the different people, and how much we've put the state on the back foot and sort of tied them up in knots a little bit. It's harder for them to act to us the way the British state are acting to them for various reasons. Some are out of just fortunate reasons, just the size of the country, size of the population, but others do have, a lot has to do with the way others, or people in Ireland, have developed this movement in the last maybe 6 or 7 years. It's been extremely sophisticated and extremely good. And the fact that you have, I don't want to start naming names because I couldn't possibly get to the Irish Inquiry type people, the Uber Boyo, I could go on and on and on. Now you have Nick Delahanty. He's not necessarily a right-wing nationalist ideologue. I'm not trying to put him in that or whatever. Like, I don't want to group people up, but like, he's just a cool, interesting figure, you know, with fresh ideas. And that's the other thing as well. It doesn't have to be. What I like about a lot of these people is that they don't have to be strictly right wing or strictly conservative or strictly this or that, and they can have sort of a fresh idea of how to progress the society in a better way. And lots, like I could go on with dozens of people who are just fucking class. And out of our small little country of a few million people, it's pretty good. So anyway, I'm just proud as all. So yeah, okay, I'm going. Oh, it's one more there. It's from Teacher Connor, €2. There's retired boomers I know are comfortable. Listen, I appreciate the super chat, but don't get me started on boomers. I mean, I love boomers. I love the boomers who watch this and listen to this. The ones who have the right idea, but I can also rant about them. I really could, but it's too late for that. I won't do it now. But thank you for the super chat. Yeah, let's just say I agree with you. But anyway, yeah. So I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Take it easy. Ihawa. See ya.